the whole world that we live in works with signals. Hello and welcome to my channel, and if you have already been to my channel, then welcome back. My name is Karina and I'm an expert in public relations and mass communications. And before we get to the topic, I would like to invite you to like and share this video and support my growth by subscribing for my channel if you like my content. Now, I'm going to talk about signals because the whole world that we live in works with signals like shapes, smells, scents, sounds, etc. All of those things are signals. Those are signals that the environment or other people or other creatures within the same space with us are giving us as clues, as orientation points, so that we have information about the environment. So signals can also be behaviors, signals can also be actions, and very often signals can be words, but not the actual word that you are saying with the cognitive meaning. It could be the way that you said the word. It could be the way that you chose your words to express yourself. And in many different ways within nature, different animals are orienting themselves by signals. And you never know what kind of signal you're giving. Actually, animals are instinctually aware of the signals that they're giving. For example, when the prey runs, the predator is going to chase it. This is a signal that triggers the predator's hunter's instinct. So very often you think that the predator is chasing and then the prey runs because of that. But very often the prey itself, if it acts as a prey and runs, it's going to trigger the hunter's instinct, because that is going to be a sign, like a signal that it needs to chase this animal because it's a prey. So it's not exactly the same with humans, but we have the same version of signals within our society. So this is why you may want to think about the signals that you're giving with your looks, with your behavior, with the way that you speak, with your posture, the way that you carry yourself, and also with the habits that you exude. Because all of those things are giving signals to other people and they are assessing you. Very often consciously, but most often subconsciously. So you are always assessed, even if you don't know it, even if the person who is assessing you doesn't know it. Because when people start behaving with you, talking to you, communicating to you, interacting with you in certain ways, they actually are acting upon the ways that they have subconsciously assessed you. And very often it is not very pleasant, because let's say if you are a person who is weak on the boundaries, you don't really have boundaries, you haven't developed your boundaries properly, then you may have people that have subconsciously assessed that. So they will start breaking your boundaries. And it is going to be very unpleasant. You can get angry about that. But it is like you're giving signal that your boundaries can be crossed. And it's all on subconscious level. And again, it's not pleasant, and I have actually been through that. I have been this person whose boundaries were very weak. So I know what that's like. But on the other hand, if you have strongly developed boundaries, you instantly give a signal for that as well. And people are very reluctant to cross your boundaries because they don't know why, but they have assessed that they can't. You don't even need to communicate your boundaries to them. Very often, actually, when you communicate that certain thing is your boundary, now you have communicated and you have given a signal that you don't actually value your boundaries that much, and actually people probably often cross your boundaries because you're very often advised to communicate your boundaries, but there are people that are not necessarily with good intentions. So for them, they don't really care. So if they don't really care, even if you communicate your boundaries, now you're giving them this idea, okay, this person, maybe their boundaries are often crossed. So they're going to now cross your boundaries and they're going to minimize it, or they're going to use other manipulation techniques in order to keep crossing your boundaries. Or let's say another thing that you can give signals is that you're not competent or you're not confident, because very often you have the knowledge, you have the skills, you know that you're a good specialist, but let's say you're talking in a way that you're not very secure, and people read this as, okay, this person, maybe they don't really know what they're talking about because they're not secure in what they're saying. So even if you have the competency, even if you have the diploma, you have the experience, and what you're saying is actually true, a lot of people can read signals that are the wrong signals, and they will not really trust your professionalism. But on the other hand, if you're confident, if you use certain language, if you use certain words, and you sound sure, you sound really firm on what you're saying and what you're claiming, then people can read that as more professionalism, and they will trust your judgment even more. And there is a lot of things that may give those subtle signals. For example, let's say one of the signals is actually if you want to always be right, because a lot of people will want to always be right and they think that this is the way to go and to communicate professionalism. But if a person has the need to always be right and prove that they're right and win all the arguments, then now people are not confident in them because they're aware that it's not possible a person to not make mistakes or always be right. So that's actually a red flag, which is a signal for something is wrong there. If you are a really good specialist, very often you may say, hey, I may have to check that information, or I may have to make one more test in order to assess the situation, because let's say you have certain data but it's not enough to make a conclusion. Or let's say some other specialist is going to have a discussion with you, and then your professionalism will tell you that you can improve here, and you can say, hey, in this particular situation you're actually right. So a lot of times we are giving signals without even knowing. And when a person is listening to that from a side, they're not going to assess this consciously. Actually, sometimes they will if they are specialists themselves, but very often they will subconsciously create that idea naturally on instinctive level that they will trust this specialist more than this other specialist, even though this specialist is, let's say, they have admitted that they were wrong, but they're like, you know what, I still feel that I can trust this specialist, and I don't know why, more than this other specialist. But that could be all the signals that their subconscious has picked up throughout the whole communication and throughout the whole interaction. So now try to analyze yourself and see what kind of signals you're giving to the world and to the people around you. Look into your looks, what kind of signals your looks is giving. Maybe your clothes are fitting within the dress codes, but maybe there's something that they're giving away about you. What are your habits saying? what is your behavior saying? What is your language saying? Very often I'm assessing people by the language that they're using. Very often people are using low vibrational language like bad words, not necessarily the worst, but it's kind of the way they're speaking is with bad words. They don't care about being kind, they don't care about insulting somebody. So you can actually have that kind of signal about this person that maybe they are not very kind, or maybe they're not somebody to really trust. Maybe I would actually avoid this kind of people, because when you hear bad language, you start thinking what else can be bad within their behavior, because a lot of people are very rude and some of them are even abusive. And I'm not saying that this is the situation necessarily within the work sphere, but it's like that's definitely giving bad signal. So start thinking about the signals that you're giving with your looks, with the way that you speak, with your language, with the words that you're using, with the way that you're structuring your sentences. There's another situation, by the way, again, the way that you're structuring your sentences. A lot of people are structuring their sentences with some kind of negative underlining. For example, they will say something, but they will turn it in a negative way. So, yes, the looks, the words, the other senses, the way that you behave, the way that you keep the environment around yourself, etc. What kind of signals you're giving away to other people. And try to imagine, if you're in those other people's shoes, what would you think about yourself as a person, having in mind all of those signals. So this is for today's video. Please let me know what kind of signals you're giving and what kind of signals have you received that maybe have been a red flag or maybe have been a good thing. And in general, what do you think about this topic? Also, I would invite you one more time to like and share this video and also subscribe for my channel. Thank you very much and have a great day.